My future sister-in-law served our wedding desserts at her game night, so I ended her free stay. My name is Claire. I'm 30, and I'm marrying Daniel in October. Daniel and I are not having a huge wedding. We both come from large families, but after watching several relatives spend years paying off one extravagant day, we decided to keep ours simple. We booked a small garden venue outside Richmond, invited 70 people, and chose a local baker instead of one of the luxury wedding companies. Even with a modest wedding, every decision still seemed to cost more than expected. Flowers cost more than our first car payment. Chairs had separate delivery fees. The photographer charged extra if we wanted the pictures in color and black and white. So when we found a bakery willing to make a small two-tier cake and several trays of mini desserts within our budget, we were thrilled. The owner, Maribel, prepared a tasting box for us. It contained 12 miniature desserts: lemon cake with raspberry filling, chocolate espresso cake, vanilla bean cake, pecan bars, strawberry shortcake cups, and several frostings. Each one was labeled. She also included 2 handmade sugar flowers because I had asked whether they would look too old-fashioned on the cake. The box cost $160, which was credited toward our final order if we booked with her. We planned to taste everything after dinner on Friday, rank our favorites, and send Maribel our decision by Monday. At the time, Daniel's younger sister, Brooke, was staying with us. Brooke is 26. She had been living with her boyfriend, but after a messy breakup, she called Daniel crying and said she had nowhere to go. Their parents live 40 minutes away, but Brooke said their father would lecture her and their mother would monitor every phone call. Daniel asked whether she could use our guest room for 2 weeks. I said yes. 2 weeks became 6. She didn't pay rent, which I didn't expect, but she also didn't buy groceries, replace toiletries, clean the bathroom, or take out the trash unless someone directly asked her. She treated our home like a hotel, where the staff had become strangely emotional. There were smaller incidents. She borrowed my cream-colored coat without asking and returned it with makeup on the collar. She used a bottle of wine Daniel and I had been saving for our anniversary because, according to her, wine was meant to be opened. She gave one of our spare keys to a friend so the friend could drop by whenever. Each time, Daniel spoke to her. Each time, Brooke apologized in a tone that made it clear she believed the apology itself erased the behavior. I kept telling myself she was going through a difficult period. Friday afternoon, I picked up the dessert box on my way home from work. I placed it on the middle shelf of the refrigerator with a note taped across the lid. "Wedding tasting. Please do not touch." Then I left to meet Daniel at the venue because the coordinator needed us to approve the rain plan. We were gone for less than 2 hours. When we returned, there were 4 unfamiliar cars parked outside our house. Music was playing from the living room. Someone had moved our coffee table against the wall. Brooke and 5 friends were playing cards at the dining table with cocktails lined up between them. I noticed the dessert plates immediately. The tasting box was open on the kitchen counter. Almost everything was gone. One woman was eating the last pecan bar. Another had broken one of the sugar flowers into pieces and sprinkled it over ice cream. The lemon and espresso samples had been cut into tiny squares and passed around like party snacks. For a few seconds, I simply stared. Brooke smiled and said, "Perfect timing. We saved you too." The 2 they had saved were both plain vanilla. I asked her why she had opened the box. She said they wanted something sweet and there wasn't much else in the house. I pointed to the note. She shrugged and said, "I saw it, I just didn't realize the whole box was sacred." Daniel asked whether she understood that those were paid wedding samples. Brooke, I rolled her eyes and said, "You're acting like I cut into the actual wedding cake." One of her friends quietly put down her fork. I told Brooke that the tasting box had cost $160 and that we now had no way to compare most of the flavors. She laughed. Not nervously, not apologetically. She laughed as though I revealed I spent $160 on air. Then she said, "That's insane. Honestly, I did you a favor. None of it was worth that much." That was the moment my sympathy ran out. I told her she needed to call the bakery, explain what happened, and pay for a replacement tasting. Her expression changed immediately. She said she didn't have that kind of money. I reminded her that she had ordered cocktails, takeout, and concert tickets while living with us for free. She said those expenses were already planned. I said replacing something she took should become the new plan. Brooke stood up and accused me of embarrassing her in front of her friends. I told her I hadn't invited her friends into my house, and none of us would be having this conversation if she had respected a note written in capital letters. Daniel asked her one final time whether she would replace the box. She said no. Then she added, "It's dessert, Daniel. You're really going to let her turn you against your own sister over dessert?" Daniel quite quiet. I expected him to ask everyone to calm down. He has always been the peacekeeper in their family, which usually means Brooke does whatever she wants while everyone else lowers their voice. Instead, he walked into the guest room and returned with her suitcase. He told her she could stay with their parents. Brooke stared at him as though he had slapped her. She said he had promised she could stay until she found an apartment. Daniel said the promise assumed she would treat our home like it belonged to other people too. Her friends left quickly. Brooke packed while crying loud enough for us to hear every zipper and cabinet door. Before leaving, she told me she had destroyed her relationship with her brother. Daniel said, "No, you gambled our relationship on the belief that I would never tell you no." It was probably the strongest thing I had ever heard him say to her. The next morning, Daniel's mother called. She said Brooke had arrived at their house emotionally shattered. She accused me of being materialistic, controlling, and incapable of understanding that Brooke was vulnerable after her breakup. I explained the dessert box, the note, the previous incidents, and Brooke's refusal to replace what she took. Her mother said, "I understand that it was rude, but making someone homeless over cake is disproportionate." Brooke was not homeless. She was sleeping in the bedroom she grew up in, inside a house owned by two people who loved her. But the family kept repeating the word homeless because it made our boundary sound crueler. Daniel's father called later and privately admitted Brooke had been difficult, then asked if we could let her return for just another month because she and her mother were already fighting. Daniel said no. That weekend, Maribel squeezed us into another tasting. She refused to charge the full price after hearing what happened, but we paid anyway because the loss was not her responsibility. We chose the lemon raspberry cake and pecan bars. Brooke did not pay for the replacement. Instead, she posted a vague message online about women who isolate men from their families before marriage. Several relatives apparently knew exactly who she meant. Then something happened that ended the argument for good. 3 days after moving back with her parents, Brooke invited 2 friends over without asking. They opened a bottle of bourbon her father had been saving since his retirement party. It was worth more than our tasting box. Her father came home while they were drinking it. Suddenly, the family understood that the issue was not cake. It was not bourbon either. It was Brooke's belief that anything inside a house where she felt comfortable automatically belonged to her. Her mother never apologized to me, but she stopped asking us to take Brooke back. Brooke and Daniel have barely spoken since. I'm sad about that, because I never wanted him to lose his sister, but I also refused to begin our marriage teaching her that our boundaries are optional as long as she creates enough family drama afterward. Some people say we should have given her one final warning. I think the note was a warning. The conversations about my coat, the wine, the spare key, and the groceries were warnings. The request to replace the desserts was her final chance. She chose to laugh. So, am I the a-hole for ending her free stay over what she insists was just cake?